Mark, thank you so much for being here on LeadTail TV. I'm so excited to see you and be with you here. Cheers and welcome.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got it. Well, let's just dive right in and talk about, what you're looking at and what you're seeing, what you're excited about, you're looking forward to the most in trends in marketing that you're going to be looking forward to implementing in your own business as you're working today at RevOps. As I understand, you're the head of marketing there, so congratulations. And what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so, one of these trends that everybody's probably popped up on the radar, and it does kind of end up being this kind of catchphrase, but the product-led growth movement has been really huge. And I think that, coming from a decades worth of experience of B2B marketing, in which we did the kind of traditional inbound motion where it was like white paper, download, nurture, scoring, marketing qualified lead, pass it to sales. Having come from that, the term product-led growth was like, wait, it's product-led. Like, where does marketing fit in this? Is there any sort of, am I at risk here? Once I got over all of that, I realized how much value marketing brings in this model.
How exciting. So when you think about that kind of stuff, what goes through your mind about like process and structure and all the details and how you're putting those kinds of things together? Like, it's not just like, the fun part, I would imagine, is thinking it up. But then how for you is structure and process? Is that fun too? And then what do you do to do that, to implement it?
Yeah, I think it's fun. I think there's a kind of push and pull because I'm a very much like shoot from the hip kind of guy. And I always have been. And I think that's kind of where the best things that I've done have come from, was just like, hey, let's try that and kind of do it under the radar and then see if it works and then tell everybody about it. But I think within this motion of product-led growth, it's really difficult because this requires significant cross-functional work, right? So working with the product team, for example, which is really not something I'd done in the past. Product lived in that world, I lived in this world. And so working within that structure that they work is a very different thing, with, the way they have their tasks set up. It's like a very structured process that I've never previously worked in. So on the one hand, it was a bit challenging, a bit daunting. On the other, it's very exciting to be able to kind of build out this whole map and like see it grow over time and kind of imagine something in your head and then have, let's say, the product team work on it and come back and like actually see it and to come to fruition. But for me, the execution and then like the results, that's the exciting part. The exciting part is like executing and then seeing what comes back and like if it worked, and it's like very exciting. Yeah.
Oh, it is nice to see something come to completion and see it working. And then hopefully, there's, life isn't perfect, and there's usually one little gremlin that makes it in there too, maybe, that you're like, oh, we can learn from that. And can you think of something that like you went, oh, wow, that was a big learning or lesson from something that was kind of like this?
I would say that for me, and given my propensity to be a kind of shoot from the hip guy, I do a lot of things that don't work. And then there's that one thing that does work, and it's very exciting, right? There needs to be an appetite in the organization you're in to be comfortable with that. I'm very lucky that we're an earlier stage company. I was the first marketing person, and we're a very small team. And so I am given a lot of leeway to make mistakes because, well, early on, no one would have noticed. Now that we have a greater awareness in the marketplace, I have a little bit, I have to hold back my punches a little bit. In terms of what has and hasn't worked and learning, there have definitely been times where even in this role, where I would come in and I think I had some blinders on in terms of thinking through, let's say, a campaign or an initiative, where I could only see like, this is definitely going to work. People are going to love this. And it was completely just in, me being a yes person to myself. We had this idea. It was going to be kind of this thing that you would use on LinkedIn to kind of give people props, similar to kind of a built-in LinkedIn function, but we thought we'd made it a little better. And I had all sorts of grandiose ideas of how this was going to turn out, and in reality, it didn't land at all. But there were learnings from that to really, as you plan something, to try to think of all the ways it could go wrong, and how you learn from that. And also understand the potential, like the cost of opportunity. Does it make sense to invest in this if the best case scenario is better or worse than doing something else? I've also learned that just because there's a blog post written about how to do something doesn't mean that it's the way you're supposed to do it.
Thank you.
A lot of times those are just people writing stuff or just regurgitating something else they see. There's not a lot of novel information there. And also things have changed so fast recently, and they continue to change so fast that a lot of that is not relevant anymore, and doesn't really make sense, especially in this world where there is this kind of growth mindset, product-led growth, all these things that a lot of that content, you have to be able to filter it.
It's kind of a unique situation where you are working product-led, where is the KPI, or where is the how are you going to be measured? I guess let me just leave it at that.
In the old world, kind of the traditional inbound marketing motion, there was always this idea of the marketing qualified lead. That was the thing, right? But it was this vague thing. It was almost always just subjective from the marketing side. The conversion rate between MQL and SQL is just like, and sales would live here and they would just be like, what is this? Why are you giving this to me? And so that metric, I think, is just, I have left that world, and I'm glad, because it really didn't mean anything. So
you all heard it here first, everyone. You heard it here first.
Right. So
or at least I heard it here first.
If you're familiar with that meme of Drake, where he's like, there's the top frame, he's kind of like this, and the other frame, he's like, so the top frame where is the MQL, and the bottom frame that he's excited about is what we would call, I guess, a PQL. Now, PQL is a product qualified lead. And in the same way that maybe a marketing qualified lead would be somebody that has reached some sort of threshold of points based on visits and opens and all these things that you've, again, kind of subjectively decided are indicators. You do the same, but kind of in the product or within the customer journey once they've signed up. And so that and overall acquisition of new trial users is the metric that I'm judged against and looked at. The amount of people that sign up for a webinar or whatever, our newsletter, those are great, but that's not the metric of success right now. That metric of success is acquisition and like qualified acquisition. And that number is, it's done quite well over the last year. We've seen significant growth, I think, as a result of the way we've changed our motion to really push people as making the product the thing, and then working within that context of them using the product or having signed up for the product, as that is now the indicator of how we market to them.
I can't wait to hear how it all unfolds, because it's such a, it's funny that you say old versus new, because it's not old. Like, you even look at social media and that's not old. Are you seeing technology that's able to meet this new way of thinking?
Yeah, I think so. I think that a lot of these marketing automation and CRM and marketing tools were built based on the inbound sale motion, right? So HubSpot invented this term, and even they are kind of moving away from that. I was brought up Marketo, HubSpot, these marketing automation tools that were built for this kind of nurture experience. I think that those big players are now starting to understand that model is not the only model, and there are other products that are being bolted on to these kinds of CRMs to identify product usage as a indicator for lead scoring, or an indicator of a qualified lead for sales or different kinds of content to be nurtured with. And we're seeing that a lot. There are things like, CDPs like Segment, or, built in-house. So, we've done things like used our SQL database to push product usage information to a CRM record of individual accounts that have signed up as a way to understand what stage of their journey they are they qualified? Have they reached some sort of threshold that we would consider them like an active user? That kind of thinking. I think I would say that as we go forward, the CRMs and marketing tools are gonna need to implement this out of the box. There are definitely players now that are bolting on that are kind of talking about themselves as like a product-led growth CRM, or enables product-led growth through your CRM. And so, yeah, I think that the world is moving along with this, and that's just going to be the direction we go.
That's I can't wait. I can't wait. And I love when innovation drives technology like that coming from marketing. And not, that it's always been fun to see when thoughts like this and thought leadership and conversations like this are happening, and you can see it all unfolding. And so I can't wait to replay this conversation a year, well, maybe even 6 months from now, as fast as
a year is a lifetime.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Who knows what'll be there?
Yeah, that's a little too long. So all right, I want to shift the conversation into your newsletter.
Sure.
You've steadily grown, and I would love for you to tell us more about that.
My default is very much like shooting from the hip, coming up with an idea, trying it under the radar, seeing what works, and then kind of introducing it to everyone. And that was that worked pretty well early on because we were not as well known in the marketplace. So, I came into my role here bringing that my previous mindset of content is the key to bringing people into your funnel. And I understood that content was required to really scale up our awareness motion. But given that I was a sole marketer, we did not have content to work with. How can I jumpstart this without having to spend the next month writing a blog post every day? And so I was kind of thinking through this idea, what do I do? And I had this idea of like, well, I don't have to be the writer. All I have to do is be the conduit of this content. And that some of that thought leadership juice, like I get it. And so I had this idea like, okay, I'm going to start a newsletter in which I curate content that I find that I think is relevant to our audience. And you know what, I'm going to go really crazy, and it's going to be daily. And everything that I knew or thought I knew told me that a daily email is too much. It won't work. People will hate it. But I was like, let's just try it out. And so I didn't really tell anyone. And I kind of built a Zapier thing in which I would kind of curate content and it would push it to an RSS feed. And we were using ActiveCampaign at the time. And what I was doing was kind of promoting it in a non-spammy way through some Slack channels and on LinkedIn. And all of a sudden leads started coming in, and our team would see it because I have our forms kind of hooked up to Slack. So when a new inbound lead comes, people were seeing it. And so they were seeing a lot of them and were like, what is this? So it really started taking off. It's kind of grown into this thing that I never imagined it would be. And I've kind of locked myself into a daily thing where I spent, I'm at the point where I take, 15, 20 minutes in the morning and find that content for the day. And I write like a little blurb at the top. And it's a great conduit for our own content or when we have things coming up as a company. It's also been an amazing way to make connections. So, we kind of transitioned some of our content into doing a lot of interviews, and through people that were subscribed to the newsletter, I found, C-suite director, VP level people that were great for interviewing. I just kind of said, hey, is anyone out there in this newsletter interested in getting interviewed? And that was an amazing thing. I was able to make connections. But we also see that, even over a 6-month period, a lot of those people will end up now in our sales funnel. Even if it didn't happen right away, I look back, I'll see a new, sign up, and I'll kind of go through and I'll see, this person's been signed up for our newsletter since, March of last year. And only now, so it's like this long game, and it's this nurture, but it's providing value. And our unsubscribe rate is minuscule. I mean, almost never. And so between the daily, and we also have a weekly curated, we're looking at like 1,500 subscribers that are quite active. We're getting, like 35% open rates. So people are still really interested in it. And I get people reaching out asking me, hey, I wrote this blog post. I think it might be relevant. Can you share it? Which I'm almost always happy to do, as long as it's not, super promoting. And so it's been really cool. Really exciting to see that. And it's been a great way for me to do market research, because I can see which types of content people click on the most, and that helps dictate our content strategy as well. So it's been really awesome.
Just to be clear, at the very beginning, you kind of said it, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that you connected it to Zapier, and that was like a key component, I think. And then also you shared it and went in, and I think you created like a human to human, which is what I'm all about, a meaningful connection with people, which is what got them into the newsletter. So it wasn't like you created ads and went in and did a lot of stuff around it. You created meaningful interactions, which is what got this going in several places, and you did that. Is that what I'm picking up on that?
Yeah. So one of the philosophies I really tried to bring into this role, given that we're, a small company, or we were small when I started and didn't have much of a marketing infrastructure, was to kind of manually do things that are not scalable and then figure out how to scale them. And so what I really, what I did was I would manually go into some of these Slack groups that I'm in and say, I've been curating content. I think you might be interested, that kind of thing. You can sign up here. And people started doing that. And then one of the things I started doing is at the end of on Monday of every week, I would post the top 5 articles from the previous week based on clicks, and say, these are the top 5 from last week. If you want to get more content like this, sign up here. So it wasn't purely promotional. It was also, and that was a huge driver of people signing up.
And the places themselves don't see this as a spam play of like, sign up
No.
for my newsletter. That's not a...
No, I thought they would. But it's interesting because one of them, when I stopped doing it, was like, why'd you stop doing it? They really? felt it brought value. That was a very manual thing, and today it's a little harder, and there is a bit of a flywheel happening, just based on people going to our blog and signing up for this newsletter on their own. Or one of the things I've done is that at the bottom of the newsletter, it's something like, where you forwarded this email, if you're interested in getting something like this, sign up here. And so it has created a bit of a flywheel, and so that I don't really need to do that manual work anymore. I think if I did, I would see a big increase, but it's that cost of opportunity thing, because there's a lot of other things going on.
So building off that, what are some skills or resources that you think are important for marketers, but or you think that they want to use to create more content? Or do you think of, and also actually, how do you think of yourself as a content creator?
Being a content creator, you don't need to be Shakespeare, right? You don't need to be Hemingway. And I think that in our world of creating content, no one wants you to be. No one's going to read that. But on the other side, you do need to be able to write in a way that people find engaging. So I think for myself, I've tried to find a middle ground between like a command of language in some way, but also not sounding academic too much. I think that people don't find that engaging. My goal today as a content writer is that the person engaging with this content walks away learning something that they can use in their day-to-day. When we put out a piece of content, I like to add maybe some sort of spreadsheet calculator that they can use, or way to map out something that they can just kind of fill in the blanks. so that they can walk away with like a tangible asset. And that's my goal today about the way we do content. I don't want it to be listicles. I want it to be quality. I have moved away as much as possible from gated. For example, we are doing video interview series for ourselves. I don't gate that. You know, I think that, you know, things like exit intent, there was a time I was all over it. I don't do that today. I think if somebody wants to learn more about you, they will take the effort to do it. Otherwise, it's just not quality.
Wonderful. And what kinds of opportunities do you believe are, or do you use to create content for marketers that you think they're leaving on the table because they might not have the right resources out there?
Yeah, so this is a great question. This goes back to my initial kind of conundrum, which is I'm a lone marketer in the company. We don't have this big library. We don't have a lot of resources. How can I scale content? So beyond the curation, the other thing that I realized is interviews, right? We're doing it right now. Reaching out to thought leaders in our space and saying, hey, can we chat? I want to interview you for a blog. And I got interviews with some really well-known people in our space. And those would turn into 5,000 word blog posts, right? And then I could repurpose it and it helped me myself. And what's interesting is that series, we did about 20 over the course of a year. And we had some great content from that. And one of the things I wanted to do is turn this into an ebook because there's a lot of value. There's lessons to be learned here. So I actually had developed a relationship with the folks at HubSpot, actually through the newsletter is how I got that relationship, and said, hey, listen, I have done all these interviews. There's some great content here. This is straight out of your playbook, which is take blog content and turn it into an ebook. Would you want to partner on this? And we did. And so that ebook is out now. It's called, I think, 50 plus lessons from today's revenue leaders. It's a beautiful thing brought to you by HubSpot and RevOps. I would never have been able to work with a company like HubSpot on something like that had I not, done all this work. And the truth is, the actual content came from somebody else. I just put it on paper. And so there's a huge benefit to that. And it's really a scalable thing.
The fact that you actually reached out and asked for help outside of the organization, partnered up with somebody and got it done, rather than reaching inside the organization is like good for you. The reach now with HubSpot is greater than your own company. So also good for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, good. That's fantastic. So shifting gears and closing out also, what's one or two things that you could not work without? Like, is there a toy you love to fidget with? Is there a nice green plant just out of frame? Are you a pen and paper kind of person? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I am quite a fidgety person, but I've actually started exercising a little bit in the morning, and that's actually helped with my fidgeting. I would say that I wouldn't be able to live or work without coffee, obviously. It's an absurd amount of coffee. But I think that the things that I like, the toys or the things that I like messing around with are actually like tools for work. And my CEO has told me that he feels like I get too geeked out on some of these tools and always kind of, I'm a product hunt geek. I don't know if you're familiar with Product Hunt, but people make products and they put it out on Product Hunt and you vote it to the top. And there's just, some really cool stuff in there. And so I go there every day and I test these things out. But I would say that in terms of work tools, I'm in HubSpot 99% of the day. We shifted our CRM to HubSpot. We do marketing in HubSpot. We have the whole suite. And so I am, I have 5 HubSpot windows open right now. And so I obviously that's a huge part of what I do every day. Grammarly, I don't think I could live without Grammarly. I mean, just like the difference, because no matter how many times I looked over a piece of content I've written, there was always a typo and that wasn't picked up. And Grammarly has been a lifesaver. And so those are things that I can't live without, and coffee.
I forgot about Product Hunt. I used it a while back, and now all of a sudden you're reminding me about it. So now it's going to be
Well, we have the
logged
same
in.
barber, I think. We have the same
We
hairdo.
do, and that barber will be ourselves, I'm sure. But
Oh, yes.
I love talking to incredible marketers who are doing wonderful things in the world. I can't say you just said one thing. You said many things that were so spectacular about what you're doing in the world and how you're doing it and how your approach is. And it's just so nice and refreshing to see how you're being innovative with what you're doing. And so I just love everything and all things about you. So thank you so much for spending time with Leadtail today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.